Like you have to understand how other brands work and the way you can make your own brand. Even though as a graphic designer, I think this whole thing of you still have to wear many different hats. You're not just one product, so it's a little different, but still people buy you for yours. So you want to be visible for that and to those people. If you have a solid brand as a graphic designer, it's kind of proves that you can also design other people's brands. So I think it's a good opportunity to show your own brand off. Of course, if that's not consistent, then how should people trust you to do other brands? And brand means everywhere where you get in contact with this product. It's sort of the entire user experience is part of the brand, including the colors, the textures, the smell, your style, the music, the everything that surrounds you. It's part of your brand, kind of. It's your personality, so it explains who you are. So you need to kind of make it palatable for the people you're trying to reach. Try to find out how they can find you, which ways you can reach them the best. Is it only word to mouth, or do you want to advertise, or do you want to win prizes, be in books, in competitions? And they need to know why they should hire you, of course. So then they need to know why they should care about you and why you care about them. And so you do need to create sort of a relationship with the client. And over the years, when you work together, you become irreplaceable to them, because they would have to change their ways of working as well as you working with them. It just becomes easier if it's long, it's a longer relationship as a graphic designer. And a brand in general, here you can see Twitter, how it started, the logo, and how it evolved. It will always be iterated, of course. It will change. But you need to find out the people that you're trying to reach. What do they understand? You speak the same language, and you have this kind of, these tribes, they call them. As a general brand, maybe less of a personal brand, but there's an identity. You need to find out that you can go into a store sort of blindfolded, and you would know if it's a Muji store or if it's a Uniqlo or an H&M or a Nike store. You could just smell it, and you can hear the music, you can hear the noises, the sort of the textures, you could touch it, and you would still know which store you're sort of in. That's a good brand if they can kind of keep that consistent. These brands are trying to sell you some kind of quality of life. Muji wants to make you feel comfortable. Nike wants to make you feel energetic. Multiple elements that come together in the brand. The brand tries to sort of unify that into one. As a designer, it's kind of similar. You have many talents that you can do. You do sort of doing illustrations there, you do graphic design there, you do typography there, you do layout and editorial, and so on. And you need to fill all these elements into your brand so that they can all be sort of represented in one. And so that's hard to stand out, to be unified, because you need to stand out. Like when you walk down the street, like in here in Shinjuku, there's so many, this is Harajuku, there's so many brands to compete against. If you don't have a unified brand, people will confuse you. So in order to be irreplaceable, one has to always be different than the rest. That's what Coco Chanel said. It's a quote out of a book from Seth Godin. And I think we watched this little interview with him about the story about little mismatched socks, that they create this story that the clients, which are those teenage high school girls in the cafeteria, that story is created by the company to give to them. So similarly, tell them the story why you are different. I also think these days we have to think of a digital presence and an online presentation. So you have to keep in mind that this would have to work as an icon as well. I said before, there's always another iteration of your logo. It shouldn't be completely final. And you can see how some brands kind of condensed their essence down from like, I really like the last one, Ian Spalter. There's a Netflix series, Abstract. As a great example, I always use Ian Spalter's Netflix series Abstract, and he explains how he condensed the Instagram logo from the left, on the bottom left, to the right, and he still kept the super essence of the brand, the diversity, the colors, the camera, everything, but he simplified it so much that it will stand out large and big and still be interesting and understandable. Language is also a really important part of the brand and the way you speak to your customers and how you present yourself. Like I could be sitting here with a suit and tie, or I can speak very academic, or I can just be very friendly. It's a different kind of brand that I would be conveying, because I talk to you on a different level than with clients, maybe. And when, like, this brand is a customer reply from Moo, they do business cards and they misprinted something, but they apologized right away. So I think once you have this, that somebody's honest to you to admit their mistake, you can trust them even more than the other way around. If they ever find out that you made a mistake and you try to hide it, then they will never trust you again. So, but even the language, how they explained it, is kind of nice and friendly, and it builds a relationship once again. A good place to look for a cool brand, I think, is always the Olympics, because it's like a big organization that takes wants a very strong identity for their Olympics profile. And you can see throughout the years there's this change of graphic style. So it's interesting to look at those, because you can really tell the historical references in the logos, and as well as the message that they're trying to convey there. So when you choose a name for a brand, it's a very critical part. And later on, I'm going to give you some checklists where you can kind of measure the how good a name of a brand is, how memorable and how useful. But one thing I think you need to consider is that you have to explain this probably another 50, 100,000 times the next time you walk into meetings, parties. Every time you meet and you have to explain your brand name, you better make it something that's funny, not just like 3 times. And you need to explain it so many times. It would be best to have a story around that, short and catchy. We had a company called Boys and Girls, because most people that walked into our office, aka my apartment, back then would come in like and say, "Hey, what's up, boys and girls?" when they see us working on the Macs like setup in there. So it was kind of, people just remembered us as the Boys and Girls. Why don't you just go to the Boys and Girls and do your graphics there? I think that's a story that's memorable, and it's kind of, it was cute for what it was back then. I think for me, so I think it would be a good example to use like that. But do we really need a logo? This is the Ian Lynham from Tokyo, and he every time you go to his website, it changes into a different logo. It's still sort of a keeps on brand being the logo, and that's his brand, that his logo is changing. So it's just like one part of it, like how he is a leprechaun that can adjust to different other situations as well. So like, here's one more slide before that. The brand is very hidden, because that whole message that you're conveying, your whole personality pretty much that you're building up, it's the tip of the iceberg is that logo and the color and the typeface that you chose. And you can see this in this brand book by yeah, Alina Wheeler. So I think that's the pretty good one. And I have a later on one, I recommend a book about logo design as well that I thought was really good. Because that logo should be like easily recognizable, even if it's tiny or if it's big. So design it as well in black and white, as well as in color versions. Like the less blends you can avoid, because they never really print well. But now you're doing so much digital, so you could consider how, if that's your primary use of the logo, then maybe you can get away with that. So also, before you start designing, obviously, do a lot of sketches. My technique is always 20 sketches in 20 minutes. Don't get stuck up, make as many as possible. Even write down the words in this example here. You can write down the message. If you can't really put it into something that you can draw, a shape or a color or something, then you should write down that message just for now, so you have it down. Many people make mind maps. It's really good technique. It's not so easy, but it's usually, when you start out as a designer, you have too many ideas. I mean, that's our job. We come up with many ideas. It's much harder to condense it down and throw out the ones that are not good. But if you make mind maps and you write down all of your ideas, everything that you want to be or that you are, and then you can see how that's connected, it becomes more visual. And then you can zoom out on that mind map and you can see the different clusters, and maybe you can find in that whole universe of stars that you made there, you can find sort of which solar system you are located in. Here's actually a mind map that I found on the street. It was in front of a gallery. I don't haven't really seen it all, but it's kind of a interesting place to put it, I thought. Because you can be going off completely wrong, like Tropicana here, they redesigned their um, brand, and they thought that people wanted to see the actual product, which is the juice, but people are so um, they love the old Tropicana typeface, the feeling that they have from this like kind of classic look, and that's what the Tropicana juice for them represents, that they have had this for so many years. They didn't want a new generic orange juice like everyone else in the supermarket. So it completely failed and they went actually back to the old logo. So you have to see what your clients really want and not what the brand guidelines will tell you sometimes.